Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lesson 3 of the Wild Apricot Boot Camp. I'm Coach Mark, and I'm going to take you through some of the fun social features of Wild Apricot that you'll be able to provide to your members so that they can engage with one another. To give you an idea of what this lesson will cover, first we'll go over a general overview of what's available in Wild Apricot, mainly touching on things like the automatic emails that exist for memberships and renewals, as well as events and donations, as well as how you can send manual newsletters, like newsletters or other things that you would want to communicate to your members. In part 2, we'll talk more about some of the social features on the Wild Apricot site itself, such as donations, blogs, forums, the photo albums, avatars, and how you would configure the member directory. But first and foremost, part 1, emailing. In Wild Apricot, you have the ability to send an unlimited amount of email to your users. Many of these are probably going to be automatic emails. Things like membership renewal notices or invitations to events, maybe a donation campaign that you have coming up that you would send a newsletter for. You can customize both, of course, and in fact, the automatic emails can be personalized in many ways so that your members would receive a notice that would be specific for them. It'll say, Dear Mark, for example, rather than just Dear User. But when we're talking about manual emails, there are tons of templates built into the system, and you can create your own. So you should be able to accomplish pretty much anything you have in mind using Wild Apricot's email function. First and foremost, I did want to highlight some of the resources available in the handout for today's bootcamp lesson. We have a document all about how you can send manual emails, as well as anything you may need to know before you start emailing your users. And because this is important for a lot of users, I wanted to let you know how you can comply with things like anti-spam regulations to make sure that everything is okay on your side of things administratively. Most of Wild Apricot's emailing does give the user an ability to opt out, which should keep you in line with most things like GDPR, CASL, CAN-SPAM, and we do have all of those regulations available online for you to take a look at. When it comes to automatic emails, there are 3 main function areas in Wild Apricot that you'll probably want to configure if you're going to be using them. Namely, memberships, and those will be emails like activation, renewals, as well as what gets sent if somebody's credit card is expired, or if you need to invite them back to become a member. We'll also talk about the registration and reminders that can be set for events, and the emails that are able to be sent for donations. But I didn't want to forget the couple of other places that automatic emails do exist in Wild Apricot. Not everybody knows this, but you're able to automatically subscribe to forum and blog updates. So if one of your members wants to be notified every day or maybe every week when the forum is actually updated and posted to, they can set that individually, and then they will get an automatic email as well. But most importantly, almost every invoice in Wild Apricot can be made to be sent automatically. That's what's going to save you the most time, so I'm sure it'll be important to most of you. A couple of more resources if you did need to do a little bit more reading. I've included some in the handout pointing to our help site where you can learn all about automatic emails, as well as some cool features that I did want to bring to your attention, such as being able to automatically copy emails to a second address. So if you have a user who needs emails sent both to their personal address and their business address, it is possible to do that in the system. Not everybody needs to, so if that sounds like you, I do have a link here. Likewise, you're also able to designate who on the administrative team would get copied to emails that get sent out. Even things like renewal notices or event reminders can be copied back to the admin team so that they can keep track of what's going on. And if that sounds like something that would be interesting for you, I have a link here as well. We'll be heading into the Wild Apricot program in just a moment, but I wanted to give you an idea of what we'll be looking at. This is one of the screens that will give you all of the default emails that are enabled and available for a membership. And you can find this on your own account by heading to Members and then Member Emails. From here, you can set all of these individual emails that you see with a blue underline. These are the custom templates that you can set with those macros for personalization that would be sent for any of these related actions. What's pretty neat is you can actually set these emails individually for a particular membership level, or you can set them as defaults for all membership levels through this screen here in Members and Member Emails. I'll show you how to do both in just a moment, but I wanted to give you an idea of what to look for. Likewise, the reason that this may be important and maybe something you will want to do towards the front of your setup is because with the automatic emails, you can also automatically send things like renewal notices. Now, this is an option on Wild Apricot, and it can be turned off. Every now and again, I have somebody who says that they don't need a particular notice sent at a particular time, so they don't use this. But by and large, for most of you, I'm sure you'll be wanting to do two things. Not only do you want to generate an invoice and send it to the user when renewal time is ready, but you'll also want to send that custom email that you have designed for them. And I'm going to show you in just a minute where you can turn both of these options on, but they're also highlighted for you here on your screen now. They'll be in the member level that you're working with under the Renewal Policy tab. The reason this is inserted like this is because it's often missed when people are setting up their accounts, and if you were lucky enough to take part in this boot camp, I don't want you to be one of those that falls through the cracks. But let's head into Wild Apricot itself and see what some of these things look like. Here we are in Wild Apricot itself, and I figured the best place to start would be by heading to Members and then Member Emails, just like I was showing a moment ago. Now, the reason that you may want to set these first rather than setting them for any individual level that you have is because they can be set as a default email here, which means if you're trying to save the most time and that your emails would apply to all of your membership levels, or at least most of them, this would be the place to start to save yourself as much time during setup. When we click into one of them, such as the application initiation email, we can see the template email that is provided by Wild Apricot. Now, of course, you don't have to use this template. We just didn't want you to walk into a completely empty room. Something like this can be edited and personalized so that it reflects your organization, as well as adding any info that you do need in there that you want to go out to people, for example, when they initiate a membership. So if I did want to edit something like this, I can click the Edit button in the top left. Then I'm giving an email edit window, which should be very similar to most word processors and give you a toolbar at the top of the page with most of the text functions you'll need to edit your email, including bold, different color options, justification, etc. To do something simple but impactful, why don't I put my organization logo at the top of this email? So I can do that by clicking Image. We'll just use this sample one for now. And maybe I want to do something like center justify it. I can also add some info, such as if you have any problems, contact coaches@wildapricot.com. And now our application initiation email is personalized and can now be sent. You'll notice actually a couple of places where there are names in curly brackets. Now these look a little funny, but what they're going to do is fill in somebody's personal information or fill in the recipient's personal information based on what's in their profile. So rather than saying Dear Contact full name, that's going to come out and say Dear Mark. Thank you for submitting your application as a member of the boot camp. This particular link to log into the profile will send your user back to your Wild Apricot site so they can complete their application or do any account management that they may need. And of course, we could also add custom macros as needed. These are going to be taken from the info that's in Wild Apricot already, and what you can do with it is insert it by using the button here at the top right. You can select one of the available options, such as somebody's contact last name, or any of the custom fields that you've added as well. They'll all be listed here. But you would just click Insert Macro and then fill it in as needed. Once we're ready, we can click Save, and it will ask us whether we want to update the default email template for all existing users or only all future levels. If we'd like to retroactively apply this change, we'll have to use the option to update the email template for all existing levels. If this is something that will only apply to the future, we'll just update the default template. Looks pretty good. Now, if I go back, you can see there are a whole bunch of automatic emails that can be customized by the system. To give you an idea of what each does, the application initiation is when somebody starts an application but doesn't necessarily finish it. Activation is after they've been approved and they've paid for their membership, or after an admin has manually approved them if you've enabled that setting for your membership levels. It extends down to bundle member activation and new bundle administrator activation emails, as well as the renewal reminders for membership renewal. There are 2 you can set beforehand, one on the day of, one grace period email, and then one lapsed email notice. For renewal pending emails, there are some you can customize when a renewal is initiated but payment is still required, after that renewal has been confirmed, as well as what happens if, for example, somebody's credit card has accidentally expired. Now, if I did want to edit one particular membership level so that it had custom information that wasn't included in the rest of our levels, what I could do is head to Members, then Levels, the particular membership level that we're working with. In this case, let's use the Gold membership. Then I would head to the Renewal Policy. And of course, this will only work if you have a renewal period at all, so we'll have to select one of the options here. And now I can do 2 things. I can both click on any of these blue links to edit the custom email for this particular level, and I can also show you that example that I had just a moment ago of why you'll want to make sure you're generating invoices for folks, as well as emailing it to them, because otherwise, how are they going to renew? So make sure you have these options set if you do plan for people to be able to renew on their own. You will definitely need an invoice, and they'll definitely need that invoice so they know how to pay it. Now, if I did make an edit to one of these emails, such as renewal reminder number 1 for the Gold membership level, I can make an edit here. And just for purposes of this demonstration, let's add something that's very obvious up here. Let's just put Boot Camp. And the reason I'm going to do that and click Save is because now this email has Boot Camp at the very top. And just a reminder, this is renewal reminder number 1 for the Gold membership level in particular. It's not the default email. It only applies to these Gold memberships. And to prove it, I'll go back to Member Emails. And that was reminder number 1. I'll click reminder number 1 to see the default, and you can see that Boot Camp is not at the top. So it's only those Gold member levels that will see that particular email. And using that, you can send very particular onboarding or engagement packages to people based on the type of membership they've bought. If you have different information that would go out for your Gold members versus what you might tell a family or a bundle member, then that's an excellent place to put it. Now, in the handout, I've put a couple of other links to things that are related to membership emails. There's a generic page up at the top. There's also a method where you can provide an opt-in mechanism for folks if they are looking to get more communication from you, as well as how you can do the opposite and inform people how they can unsubscribe from your emails as well. In many cases, you do want to provide that. I'm not here to tell you exactly what to do, but there are often regulations regarding unsubscription privileges. But on a lighter note, there are plenty of places in Wild Apricot that you can also set the automatic event emails. And I'm going to show you those now as well. Generally, for each event, you have 3 reminder options and 3 announcement options that you can customize in advance. And like with membership emails, these can either be set as defaults for all of your events or for any particular event that you are running. And what I see people do a lot these days is actually include things like links to Zoom or online meetings in the event, well, maybe if not the announcement or the reminder, then definitely in the event confirmed email that users would get. And hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea about how you can use this for different purposes to get the info you may need from people. For example, an event announcement number 1, that's a great place to advertise your event in general for folks and to get them attracted to apply. But in reminder number 1 for folks who already are registered, maybe you want to do something like suggest that they should update their profile and make sure that all of their information is accurate. You could even put a bow on it and say you'll use it for name badges or something at the event. But the point is, it gives you an opportunity to automatically request of your members some action, be it that they remember that your event's coming up in the first place or that they do something for you. And you can see that you have a number of options here, not only the announcements and reminders, but the confirmed emails, what happens if somebody is pending but they haven't paid yet for an event, as well as what happens if the event is unfortunately canceled and you need to contact everybody at once. There also exists an email that you can set for waitlist registrations. So if somebody didn't quite make the cutoff for the event itself, but they're on your waitlist, you can send them a nicely worded email telling them to hold on, and I'm sure they might get lucky and actually be able to attend. And before we jump into the system, I wanted to show you where you can learn about event emails as well. In the handout for today's lesson, I have a couple of links all about the event emails, as well as how you can go about tracking your email delivery. Wild Apricot has an email log on the back end, and it'll show you who opens your emails and who hasn't. So it's pretty useful stuff, and I definitely recommend taking advantage of that if you can. But let's jump into the program. Here we are back in Wild Apricot, except this time, instead of the member emails, we're going to play with the event emails. So that's done very much in the similar way. You would head to events and then event emails. Now, as a reminder, these are the emails that you can set as default for all of the events in your system. If you're looking to save time and you know your email is going to share the form and functionality as many of your other event emails, it would probably be a good place to make those changes here so that you don't have to repeat them every time you create a new event. And to give you an idea, you'll have 3 opportunities to set event announcements, which are basically invitations to the event itself, 3 reminders that would be sent to people who are already registered for the event and that you wouldn't want to miss it, as well as a couple other emails for things like event registration confirmed or an event registration that's pending and hasn't been paid yet. Likewise, if you have to unfortunately cancel an event, or what would be sent to people who are on your event waitlist. Maybe something like, hang in there, maybe a slot will open up. Now you can set all of those email defaults here, and I want to give you an idea of how you can use them for a little bit advanced purposes rather than straight announcements and reminders. For example, reminder number 1 might be a good opportunity for you to do something like request people update their profile information so that nothing is missing for the event that's upcoming. Something like that can be as simple as, don't forget to update your profile. We already know these people are registered. We already know they're coming to the event. Why not ask them to stay up to date as well? And like with the member emails, you can decide whether or not this is going to apply retroactively to all of your existing events or only to future ones. In this case, I do want it to apply retroactively. The system asks for my confirmation, and I'll give it. Now, all of my event reminder 1s will remind the user not to forget to update their profile. So you can set all of your default emails here, or you can go into the email or into the event in particular to set and customize the emails for that one event. So let's do that. Let's go over to events, then event list. We'll pick any of these options, such as the fall conference here. And as I'm sure you saw in Bootcamp Lesson 2, there are a ton of settings you can set for events, but today let's head over to emails. You'll see the same options that you had in the previous screen where you could set the defaults, only now you have a few more. You can decide when you would like to schedule things like announcements, or you can choose to send it right now. Now this is for the fall conference, and I want to remind people that it may get a little chilly come fall time. So for this particular conference, but not the default email, I'm going to head into Renewal Reminder 1, the same place that we included before that they should update their profile. And I'm going to click Edit. Here, for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, don't forget to bring a jacket. Don't break your jacket, just bring it. I'll put a smiley face too because it's meant to be polite. Now, like with the member email before, this particular edit is only going to apply to the particular event that we're working with, which in this case is the fall conference. The default email doesn't have this bring a jacket part, but it does have the other part. If you do a lot of meetings online on places like Zoom, you may want to share links to those meetings in the event confirmation email itself. That way, when somebody does pay for the event and they're registered, they'll also get directions on where to join online. Wild Apricot includes some things like a QR code for in-person events, but this is still a great place to include all the information that you'd want somebody to get, basically as a receipt to the event that they just registered and paid for. Now, in the same vein, there are a couple of other places that you can set automatic emails in Wild Apricot. I don't want to touch too much on them because they're very much of the same that we just looked at, but suffice to say, you'll also be able to do them or create automatic emails for store-related emails, such as order placed, canceled, or shipped, as well as donation emails like the receipt. And I did in the handout put some specific links for those particular topics. If that sounds interesting to you, you'll be able to find some precise links here on how to customize things like donation receipts or the invoice itself, which can be customized pretty much like any other email, except it's much more boring because it's an invoice, and invoices tend to have a lot of money-related matters on them. But otherwise, let's look a little bit more into editing emails from a manual perspective on Wild Apricot. The editor for manual emails like newsletters is a little bit different than the one that exists for automatic ones, and it's actually more powerful. It lets you create grandiose templates and insert content into them that is mobile friendly and be able to be viewed on any kind of device. It should also be pretty familiar with regards to the content toolbar. We didn't want you to get lost, so that it'll still have all of the same buttons for things like justification, bolding, and how to insert images, as well as those macros that we showed off a little bit earlier so that you can personalize your messages. Now, I wanted to give you an idea of what that looks like before we go too much further. I figured it would be useful for orientation purposes. So to see an example of one of the emails that you can create manually, head over to Email, and then Templates. Now you can see here a whole bunch of templates, and I'll touch on these in just a moment, but hopefully it brightens your eyes a little bit and hopefully cuts down on the amount of work that you'll actually have to do. But if I wanted to create a new one, which in this case I think I will, I'll go up here and click the button Create New Template. We can name it. And then we can design it. Now this email editor is a little bit different because this one comes more from your creativity and your heart and soul there. You can customize the entire format of the email first and then fill the content later. So the way to think about doing that is with these layout options in the top left. If I know that at the top of my email I might want 3 columns for 3 photos, then a blank one, then one with information on the left in a sidebar like this, then another blank one, and finally the 3-column layout at the end. It may not look like much, but that's basically the template that we can fit all of our content in for the email. We have the 3 columns up here, the 3 at the bottom, some big blank spaces for most of our actual text, as well as a place that's formatted so that there's a left-hand menu and a larger right one. Then we can do things with the gadgets in the bottom left. We can start inputting text blocks, such as where I know I want my text to go. Or we can use a divider in some places where I know that no text needs to be, but I do want to separate it from the rest of my content. I know that I want 3 images, so I'll put image gadgets in each of the columns. Even down here, except in the bottom right, I'm going to put my email address so that people can find me if they have to get back to me. Then in the middle content, I might want something like another image, and then maybe a button. Now I know what's going to be placed in each of these columns, so I can start filling in content. We can start inserting images directly into the email. And here. And here. It's getting a little tedious, but we're finally done. Now, I imagine most of you will have more images to choose from, and you won't be limited to these cherried apricots or what have you here, but you can get an idea of how you would go about constructing the format of your email. This button, for example, I still want the button here, but I don't need it to be at the top of the list. So I'm going to use some of the spacer options to move it down. When I click the button itself, I can change the call to action. And I can change the link. Now, anybody who clicks that button in the email will be sent to my events page. We'll finish this by putting our email address. We'll have to make the text a little bit smaller just to fit in one line. And there we have it. My email template is complete. Now, as you can see, it is nothing too spectacular. I've stuck with very many of the defaults, just changed some things like the button color. Let's see, we'll change the color of the button to green and added some photos and text. And my challenge, I suppose, to you and to everybody who's watching this boot camp is I'm sure you can do a better job of creating your emails than I have. This is just to give you an idea of what's possible. But if you do craft something that is far superior to me, feel free to email me at coaches@wildapricot.com. I'm fully expecting it. I don't claim to be an artist. I'm more of a musician. But when this is all ready to go, we can preview it with the final step, and you can see it both on the desktop device as well as what it's going to look like on a mobile device. And something important to note if you're adding a lot of photos, the way that Wild Apricot will display images on a mobile device is it will first read things at the top left and then go across the screen basically left to right. And because it's trying to display this on a mobile device, it'll cascade it vertically from left to right. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but basically this image would appear first, then underneath this one, then underneath this one. That's only because it's too big for a mobile screen, so how Wild Apricot will translate it is by inserting it from left to right, top to bottom. You can always use this preview screen, if needed, to make your emails a little bit more concise. I think if I had seen this personally, I might decide this is far too many images at the top. They don't even get to my content until they scroll down a bit. It's probably not going to work as a great email, so I might go back to the drawing board personally. Though, if you're happy, you can go ahead and click Save. Now, this email template is saved, and it's ready to be used whenever you may need to send an email with it. You'll even see a button at the top that'll let you get writing that email right away. Emails are definitely the sort of thing that you get better at with practice, but in case you are looking for any additional information, I've included a couple of really useful links on the handout. There's information about how to use a content editor for the emails, as well as how you can select email templates and best practices for composing your emails. It's always best to know what's best to send to folks to get the point across, and also to avoid things like spam filters on the recipient side. But you saw me mention them earlier, and I wanted to mention them again. There are tons of pre-existing templates built into Wild Apricot. If you're anything like me and you're looking for a simpler way to do most everyday tasks, then the templates can really cut down on the amount of prep time that you would have to do, or you would have to spend, in order to actually have your emails ready to go. We also saw that there are a number of macros built into the program. Now, the macros will take things from the system itself, things like the renewal date or somebody's join date, their membership status, basically any of the information that Wild Apricot is logging all of this over all of this time. But you can also, more importantly, use personalized information that you have collected from people. So that's not only basic stuff like their first name or their last name or email address. If you have been creating, or if you have created a custom membership field to ask people of their favorite color, then you'd also be able to reiterate that information here in the email. The example might be something like favorite color macro, and you can find it in the list. And then you'll click it, and it'll insert into the email so that for the user who's reading it, it'll fill in their favorite color. So let's take a look at both really quickly in Wild Apricot itself. If I wanted to add some macros to this email, I'll edit the template. I'll click into where I had my text field. And instead of Dear Boot Camp, we can use the macro option at the top right to insert a macro. Maybe contact's full name. What you'll notice here is actually all of the macros are listed on the left, and all of the sample data that will show you the kind of information that Wild Apricot would basically spit out when the recipient actually receives the email. So rather than see contact full name, as an example, it'll show you support Wild Apricot. And that's what I put my name in here in the system as. I put my first name as support, my last name Wild Apricot. That's why it's showing up like that. But now we can say, Dear contact full name, happy birthday. And we can also say, you are a, we'll go back to macros. We'll scroll down a little bit to member level, which in this case will send out gold member, and it'll say you are a gold member. And there's a whole bunch. There's no limit to the amount of macros that you can use in your emails. You'll see all sorts of useful information in here related to things like event registration, donation information that they may have sent, all of the custom membership fields, whether or not they're part of a bundle. Suffice to say, you should be able to come up with some pretty elaborate emails. I just recommend keeping it as simple as you can. But the sky's the limit. And then lastly, let's cancel out of these changes and go show you what I think will save you the most time, which are all of the pre-existing templates. So to see those, head into Email and then Templates. And a quick reminder, these are templates for your manual communications, things that you would initiate and send manually, not the automatic emails that would go out. But nevertheless, they'll still save you tons of time. So for example, if I knew that my email was supposed to look a little something like this, I can go ahead and take this existing template, duplicate it. I'll leave it as a copy of the baseline template so I know what it is right now. But then we can go into the design section and start changing what's already there. Now that didn't take too long, and obviously we could do the rest and then send this out, but you can see that it can help you to come up with a pretty professional looking email very quickly. The last advanced feature that I'll show you for manual emails is that you can schedule them in advance to be sent at a later date. This can be super useful if you're trying to plan in advance, or if you know that you have a sequence of emails that you want to send to your members, but you don't want to do it on the same day as you're sending the email itself. You'll see this when you're creating an email as step 5, so don't be worried if you don't see it right away. It's something that actually gets decided in step 5 for the actual delivery step. Wild Apricot keeps track of your email history for 2 years, which means that you can see exactly how many people have opened your emails, how many messages may have bounced because the user's address was not correct or there was some other issue. And you can actually see what kind of links they've clicked on if they have clicked on any links in your email itself. This is all done through the email log, and it's something that you'll probably want to turn on if it's important to you. So I've included a link in the handout here to the email log itself. You'll also be able to turn it on from Dashboard and then Organization in your Wild Apricot account. Let's move on to part 2, which will dive deeper into the social features of Wild Apricot and how you can stay engaged with your members by using the built-in gadgets to actually allow them to post and interact with one another. Now, there are a number of ways on Wild Apricot that you actually can achieve this. Of course, there's the standard email, which will allow you to send things like newsletters and greetings to your members in an unlimited capacity because there is no limit to the amount of emails you can send. Now, something else that exists is a member directory, and within that directory, users can locate one another as well as navigate to the other person's profile. Within that profile is the option to be able to email that user using a form. Now, there are other things that are built into Wild Apricot as gadgets, things like blogs and forums that will allow you to either post content updates or maybe allow your members to post their own updates. The Members app will allow your members to view their profile quickly as well as register to any events and make any payments that they owe. And of course, you'll always be able to make website updates so that people can stay in touch as often as you're letting them. Now, the blog gadget itself is built into Wild Apricot, and this very much functions kind of like a news post or somewhere else where you may make regular updates that will be automatically displayed to the rest of your members. Blogs can be commented on, and if you visited other news sites, you may have seen things like this. You have, of course, the option to turn that on or off and control the privacy of who is allowed to comment or post blogs, but I wanted to let you know that it is something that's possible, and I'll show you how you can do it. And when you're all done, it'll end up looking a little something like this. There are actually a couple of gadgets that you can use to summarize the blog or have people navigate to different pages for it, but at the end of the day, you'll have a date and a time, a title, the author, as well as the blog's contents itself. Forums are similar to blogs, but they function a little bit differently. Rather than a place to post updates or news articles that you want to release to your members, forums work more like a discussion board where users would post a topic and other users might reply to it. It has some neat options too, like you can display users' avatars so that people know who they're talking to. And of course, as an administrator, you can control the permissions on the back end so that you can manage exactly who has the ability to post or reply. At the end of the day, it looks a little something like this, and I'll go into the program to show you more, but you'll have a list of different topics, a summary of when the last message for that topic was posted, as well as how many replies. Now, because these don't necessarily apply to everybody, I wanted to provide the resources for those who are interested in blogs and forums, and you will definitely find more detailed support on the help site, including some videos and all of the settings that are able to be adjusted. We'll do a little bit of a flyover here as well. Let's take a look at how blogs function in Wild Apricot. So here we are, and this page should be familiar by now. This is your dashboard. For the first time, let's go into Wild Apricot's website editor. To do that, you'll have to click Website on the left-hand side. When you're in the website editor, you'll see a couple of options at the top. Now, we'll talk more about this in Boot Camp Lesson 4. So right now you want to be in Site Pages, and the reason for that is because the blog is actually a gadget built into Wild Apricot, which means it can theoretically be on any page of your site. It's something that you'll have the ability to edit and customize, although right now it's on our news page. This is the blog itself. When you're editing a blog on a website page, you want to make sure that you click Edit. That way you can manipulate the blog gadget itself, which is this item. This could be moved to different areas of your site, or we could remove it altogether. In this case, let's add it again, which must be done by heading to Gadgets, and then we'll scroll down the list to find the blog. When we're ready, we can click Save, and now you have your blog itself. Pretty empty right now, so let's try adding a post. Here, you can schedule the post for the future, or you can post it right away. You'll also be able to enter a subject, as well as fill out the actual contents of that blog entry. And of course, you can format this the same way that you would be able to with an email or any of the content on your website. For example, we can center it, make it larger, and bold it. When we're ready, we'll click Post. Now, I'm sure everybody watching this video will be able to do a better job than I have with this particular blog entry, which is a little irreverent, but you get the idea of how an individual blog entry can be posted. Now, this is something you can actually assign as one of the roles to your administrators. They can be made somebody who has the ability to post on the blog. So if it's something that you'd like to share as a responsibility with others, you can give them this role. Then they'll be able to add posts. And again, I'm sure they'll be much better than my posts. Now, for people who are reading the blog, they'll obviously be presented with something a little bit similar, where they will see a sample of those blog topics, and they'll be able to click into them to actually see the full blog itself. They can also add comments. So if you do have a public blog or something that's maybe on a members only page, then you might be able to expect some of those users to actually leave comments on your blog. If you'd like to control that, it's one of the settings that you'll adjust first when clicking Edit, because you'll have to be adjusting that setting for the blog gadget itself. When you do, you can click the blog and see the settings that are available on the left-hand side of your screen. For example, here, we can denote who has the ability to read the blog, read and comment on the blog, or add posts to the blog. So if you'd like perhaps your gold members to be able to post, the families are allowed to comment, and the bronze members unfortunately would just have to read, then this is where you would set it. Now again, there is much more detailed information on what else you can do with the blog on our help site, so do make sure you check that out, and there is a link in the handout. But otherwise, let's move on to forums, which again are also a gadget on Wild Apricot, which means you'd be editing where your forums exist and the settings for them in the website editor. In this case, we have a sample page called Forums. Now clicking that, we'll see two forums immediately available to us. One called the Professional Forum and one called the Social Forum. But here's a little trick I'll teach you now. This gadget, although it looks like the forum, is actually a forum summary gadget, which is a handy organizational tool to be able to help you list your forums in an attractive way, be they all of your forums or just a handful or section of them as denoted by you. And because this is the summary gadget that can be placed on any page that people can find the forum quickly, it means that the actual forum gadget must be on a deeper page, which in this case, we have two of. Both a professional forum and a social forum. So you'd be able to create as many different forums as you like, then you can use the summary gadget to group them so that they're easy to find. In the forum itself, let's click Edit first so we can I can also show you that this is a gadget which can be moved around on your page or deleted altogether. Likewise, when you click it and get the forum gadget settings on the left-hand side of your screen, you can do things like rename it. You can choose to display photos and avatars if you have them for your members, change the order of the replies, add a description, we can choose to show that on this page and not just the forum summary. And of course, we can set which category this forum belongs to. This is mostly an organizational tool that will help you to use the summary gadget to show just specific forums. So you can place this into a category if needed. If you only have one forum, you may not need categorization, but I think it's always useful to be as organized as you can. Oops. You also have the ability, like with blogs, to set who can or who has no access to this forum altogether, so they won't be able to see or post there, who would be able to read which means see the contents, who would be able to read and post replies, and of course, who can create topics. When you're finished placing the form, you can click Save. That way we can go back to the preview of the screen itself and do something like create a new topic. This subject will be, do you think boot camp is fun? Now, because this is a discussion forum and I would expect many of my members to probably reply, this might be a little bit of a contentious topic, and what we'll do is we'll stick this one to the top of the forum to a specific date. That way people have a chance to make their opinion known. I can also do things like choose to attach files or pictures. And of course, I didn't show this for blogs, but you're able to insert pictures up here as well while you're editing the content. This applies to both blogs and forums. Go to More, then Insert Image, and then we'll use this handy candied apricot image, shrink it down a little bit, get rid of some of the white space, and that'll be that. Now, another neat function is that your members will actually have the option to subscribe to a forum or blog, which means that they're going to be able to get emailed updates of all of the changes that have happened on a daily, weekly, or immediate basis. This is one of those situations where the sky is kind of the limit. So if you have a really engaged community, I'm sure your forums will be jumping. If it's not something that interests you, then let's move on. Member photo albums are another fun feature built directly into Wild Apricot. Using them, you'll be able to allow your members to upload photos to their own private album. They'll have individual control over the descriptions, captions for those photos, as well as the privacy settings on who is allowed to be able to view their gallery. From an administrator's point of view, you can control how many photos can be uploaded by your members, although you should note there is a maximum of 50 photos per member account. One good thing to note is that these photos do not contribute towards your total global storage for your Wild Apricot account. When users upload a photo, it'll look a little something like this, where the photo itself will be front and center, and the description or caption that they provided will be applied at the bottom. For more info on how member photo albums work, just consult the handout for today's lesson. It has links to all of the relevant sections in the help site. You may have also noticed us talking about member avatars in the past. It's a function that's built directly into Wild Apricot too, and you don't have to use it if you don't want to, but they can be really fancy and flashy if applied properly to things like directories and forum posts or blogs. Users can have the ability to upload their own avatar if you allow it, or you can upload one on their behalf. Again, it's something directly built into Wild Apricot, and when you were establishing your common fields, you probably saw that it's one of the available system field options. If you want to learn more about how to use them best, then consult the handout. I have a couple of great examples here. Finally, the member directory is a very powerful tool built into Wild Apricot that can allow users to locate one another, kind of similar to a Yellow Pages or White Pages format. Not only will it allow users to be listed so that you have a total total roster of everybody in your organization, but I've seen many people repurpose this for things like service directories of people who are offering professional services. Members, of course, as we touched upon, will have the ability to control their own privacy and whether or not they would like to be listed in a place like the directory. Even if they are listed in the directory, they'll be able to control any individual piece of information that they've uploaded to their account. That way, it doesn't have to be shown on a place like the directory. For example, an email address can be set by a member so that it's members only and wouldn't be available to anybody who is viewing without logging in. Your directory might look a little something like this once you're done customizing it. You can see the 4 columns for different pieces of information, as well as the 3 rows available per column so that you can list all of these options for each of your members. Augusto Sandino here has a very charming photo. You can see that his level is listed as Platinum, his location is New York, New York, and otherwise he's a font designer. Now, since this is something that you can customize, your directory might look a lot different than this example. I want to show you how you can find the directory so that you can customize it yourself. You'll see a number of options when in the directory settings on which members it should list, whether it be from a saved search or from some other categorization of members, as well as how you would like it actually to be listed on the directory itself. Those are the different columns and rows that I mentioned. Now, there is, of course, a ton more help on the directory on our help site. And of course, you can always get in touch with us if you have other questions. But I want to give you a little bit of a preview of what you can do with the directory. So let's go into the Wild Apricot program again. Now, this is also a really good opportunity to show you how to get back to the database section if you are in the website portion of Wild Apricot. You can see that we left off here with our donation goal, and some of those options on the left-hand side are our website pages. They're not the familiar Wild Apricot functions that we may have seen in the past. So if you do need to find how to go back to that other database section, it's this button up here in the top left, the main menu button. In this particular case, the directory itself is a gadget. So we will want to head back to the website. I have a sample directory page here, so I'll click that amongst my site pages. And then I have the directory itself. If I click Edit, because this is a gadget, and it's listed in the gadgets function, near the top in fact, but because it's a gadget, I can do, as with any other gadget, I can move it around Wild Apricot and reformat it as needed. But clicking it will provide a number of options on the side, namely the members that it should include, be it all members, particular selected levels, selected member groups, or just bundle administrators. In this case, let's have it show all members. We can select some of the searching options, such as the ability to have an advanced search that will allow you to get extremely detailed on what the information you're looking for or on how to find the information you're looking for. You can also have a quick filtering option. This is a fun one because the quick filtering allows you to be able to quickly filter by data that you've collected in Wild Apricot. You can actually see a pretty good example of that on Wild Apricot's own partner page, where we have all of the different Surface partners available in things like website development or API work, and it'll all be listed so that clicking one of those quick filtering options will quickly filter the rest of the directory so only those available members show up. If you want to change how your directory looks, it's this button right here, Customize Results Layout. So once you click that, this is where you'll be able to change not only the sorting order of the directory itself, but also the layout. And how that's done is it's broken up into a couple of different columns. As we saw earlier, we have the name, phone, and membership column here. Here's column 1, entitled Name. It takes up 25% of the width, but we can make that a little bit smaller if we like. And here is the information that it will actually display. So you don't have to use name. You can set anything else as the first point of information for that directory entry. Maybe it's the email address, for example. What else you can do is set 2 further lines for what would actually be listed in that particular column. So we can do email address, phone number, and then membership level. So we've made a change here to the first column. In fact, we better retitle it as well. So let's call this email. And I'm going to click apply so that you can see the changes I've made. Aha. Now this is a really good, I'm glad this happened. So you'll notice that some of them have the email address and the membership level listed, but some do not. More often than not, this is usually because of the member's personal privacy settings. These people may have selected that they do not want their email address listed. As a consequence, it won't work in this function. So if you ever have a directory issue where you can't quite figure out why it's displaying a certain piece of information instead of another, It's more often than not the privacy settings, so you'd want to go ahead back to settings and privacy to adjust that. But otherwise, let's go back into Customize Results Layout. Let's scroll to the bottom a little bit because we can actually add, as I mentioned earlier, a fourth column. This one I'm going to use for avatar. That way somebody's photo will actually display in my directory. To do that, I have to select the appropriate field, which in this case is avatar. I'll click Apply, and it will repurpose my directory so that it actually has an avatar column. I guess nobody has an avatar listed. That's okay. It'll be an opportunity for them to see that there's a place for it, and they should head into their profile and add one. When you're done, you'll want to click Save so that your changes actually apply to the directory itself. And when somebody visits, they'll be able to browse it. I also mentioned a little bit earlier that people will be able to send messages via email if visiting somebody's member profile. You can see that button up here, Send Message. This will use Wild Apricot to send an email to this particular user. This is an option you can turn off and on in the privacy settings. So if you do not want this available, head to Settings and then Privacy. We'll do that right now. We'll head back to the database section. We'll head to Settings. We'll head to Privacy. And this is the Send Message form. Right now it's listed as anybody. Maybe I want to set that so only other members can do it. And I'm going to apply that to all of my records. Otherwise, that's a pretty good introduction to the directory. And as you've seen with the rest of my lessons here, I do encourage you to do a much better job than I have. I've done this very quickly because I just want you to learn how to do it. But spend some time with the directory because this is a very useful function, not only for individuals, but also, as I mentioned, businesses. So you could potentially have, somebody's business listed here, their email, phone number, and a picture. It doesn't have to be of them. It could be a different picture that they've used in the avatar field. And of course, it works great as a service directory there. Now, we're going to wrap up the social lesson here, and because I think there's been a lot shared with you, and that handout definitely has a number of links that are really going to make your site look great and take it to the next level. So as always, I will just invite you to stay in touch and ask for our help as much as we possibly can help. As always, you'll be able to do it at coaches@wildapricot.com, and the help site itself is at gethelp.wildapricot.com. So please do make sure you visit. But otherwise, this is Coach Mark signing off for Lesson 3 of the boot camp. I hope you had fun, and I hope you learned a couple of tricks that will help you to really make your site engaging and a community for your members. Have a great day. Hope to talk again soon.